Good evening. I'd like to call our regular council meeting on Monday, October 27th to order at 6 p.m. I'm Mayor McNeil Smith. My colleague councillors, to my far left, Councillor Novick, Councillor O'Keefe, Councillor Renewal, to my far right, Councillor Duck, Councillor Duncan, and Councillor Gurnett. Good evening to members of the staff and good evening to members of the public, both in the chamber and to those who may be watching the live webcast or a recording of the meeting as posted on our website at a later date. We respectfully acknowledge that we're holding this evening's meeting in the territory of the Wisanich people, the Sartlip Nation, the Sayot Nation, the Pakwitchin Nation, the Sakem Nation, and the Malahat Nation. In turning to approval of the agenda, since it was published last Thursday, we just have one change, and that is Councillor Duncan has made me aware that she would like to raise a letter of correspondence that is on the agenda as 1510, and we will raise that to correspondence, and it will become 14A. And with those changes, I would seek a motion to approve. Oh, sorry, I'll turn to Councillor Duncan.
My apologies. I also have 5 quick verbal reports from committees. I sent you one email. I forgot to send the second one.
Okay, so under council reports, we're adding reports from verbal reports from Councillor Duncan. So with those 2 changes, if I had a motion from Councillors Duck and Novick, any discussion? Those in favor? None are opposed. That carries. Next, turning to 4A, our regular public participation period, where we invite members of the public to come forward and address council. We ask that you speak for up to 3 minutes. Please provide your name and your municipality, and I'll call for a first time if there's anyone wishing to come forward. Good evening. Just a button at the bottom of the mic there.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Jordan Milne. I'm with GMC Projects, and I'm here to speak to you tonight as it relates to committee report item R3. Thank you so much for your consideration of our application for the sign variance that was heard at committee the whole last week. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be here. I was celebrating my 10th son's birthday, and we were out of town for it. And I knew that Representative Rachel, on our behalf, may not be able to answer all the questions. And so I'm here this evening just to answer a couple of the questions that were posed by the committee, and as well want to thank staff for their help in crafting of the motion that was moved by the committee. And so, just a second, I got to pull up my email here. So I did provide an email to the CAO Liam and Director of Development Services Alison, but realized I failed to email it Minute Sydney, so it didn't make it onto the correspondence this evening. So I'm here to provide those answers. So one, as it relates to the estimated timeline of our sales launch, right now we're doing the improvements to that portion of the building that we're retaining, and we anticipate launching the project in March of 2026. As it relates to the entry side, we are hopeful that we, in terms of estimated date of when the existing 9522 Lochside Inn and Suites entry sign would be reused and reclad or removed, we're hopeful that construction can commence in the fall of next year, so October of 2026, provided that our sales go well for that mixed-use building fronting Lochside that we intend to launch in the spring. We would like to start construction in October of next year. And another question was where our building permit was at. So we had hoped to submit our building permit application for the mixed-use building in September. Unfortunately, due to some delays in our consultant coordination, we're right now looking at a December submission of our building permit application, and in discussions with staff previously, it is anticipated to be about a 6-month process, which still aligns well with our goal of starting construction in October of next year. We also have a heritage alteration permit for the archaeological zone that we applied for in March of this year, and we're currently awaiting review, but being held up by the current labor action with respect to the government. The last question, and I failed to actually provide this to staff, so I'll provide it now, was a question of addressing. Where would addressing go on the property? And the 9522 Lochside, which is the current address, would be located on the building in order to provide for identification for first responders and the general public. I'm happy to answer any further questions you may direct to staff, and greatly appreciate the consideration of the committee and this council as we work towards trying to launch this project in a very unique market condition. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Milne, for coming forward this evening. We don't normally have questions during public participation, but if there are questions from council, I would seek a motion to invite Mr. Milne into the meeting, and we could ask questions at this time. Moved and seconded. Those in favor? Motion carries. Any questions for Mr. Milne? Okay, I was presuming the movers would have a question. Okay, well, welcome to the meeting, and thank you for coming forward this evening. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'll call for a second time. Is there anyone wishing to come forward during public participation? And we'll just wait a moment. Our guests arrive. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening.
Red's on, right? Yeah. My name is Jamie Wellborn. I live in Sydney. I just wanted to say I support the Four Winds event at Iroquois Park that is being discussed tonight. I think events like these make Sydney a more vibrant and interesting place to visit. And one thing I'd like to see, though, is if they can maybe add a bike valet. I think that could address somewhat any concerns around parking and traffic, especially with the proximity to Lochside Trail right there. I've spoken with the organizers, and they seem interested in the idea, so might be something worth considering. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll call for a third and final time. Does anyone wish to come forward to address council this evening? Seeing no further speakers, I'll close public participation and we'll turn to 4D, which is our presentation this evening. We do have a presentation regarding Iroquois Park use permit request for sales in Sagas. And we have a presentation by Alison Spokes. I ask you to come forward, and I think staff have touched base, and you do have up to 10 minutes for your presentation, and we'd be pleased if you would consider taking questions after.
Yes.
Thank you. Just a button for the mic there.
Just like that? Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for inviting us here tonight and giving us the opportunity to talk more about our event proposal. My name is Alison Spokes, and I am the owner and producer of Four Wands Faerie events. You probably know us best from the overwhelming success of the Fairy and Fantasy Fair that we hosted at the Mary Winspear Centre earlier in April, which attracted 2,000 attendees in its first year. Tonight, we're asking for your approval to build on that success and launch a second major permanent cultural and economic anchor here in Sydney, the Sails and Sagas, a Pirate and Viking Jubilee. This is a request for 2 permits, permission to use the Iroquois Park soccer field for a fenced and ticketed event, and an associated permit for alcohol use. We are here to demonstrate that this is not only the most logical choice for our growing events, but also the safest and most beneficial choice for the town of Sydney. As mentioned, our first event was a major success, but it leaves us with a bit of a challenge, albeit a positive one. We need a bigger venue. Along with many positive reviews and testimonials that we received. In fact, we collected over 200 just this last week from people who were there. The one piece of constructive feedback we heard louder than the rest was that the Mary Winspear Centre was too crowded, especially for those who had strollers or needed mobility aids. So we must expand to the Iroquois Park soccer field to solve these critical accessibility issues. This is the only way that we can deliver the experience the public demands while keeping the full economic benefit right here in Sydney. So I want to talk a bit about what our vision is for the event. The Jubilee is an immersive 2-day pirate and Viking themed daytime festival built on high quality, family friendly entertainment targeting approximately 3,000 to 4,000 people. We have a main stage hosting a diverse array of professional entertainment, which includes comedy acts, live music, and circus acts. We have a treasure trove marketplace, and by using the park, we gain the space to offer wider, more accessible aisles and the ability to accommodate more local artisans. We have a kids' corner, a dedicated supervised area that will host children's activities like bouncy castles, kids' crafts, and a pirate school. And and more. We have a whole bunch of fun attractions that we want to offer, like a mermaid lagoon, sword fighting demonstrations, sea shanty sing-alongs, workshops. In fact, we could even extend an invitation to the Sydney Museum to talk about Sydney's own rum running history. This is Sydney by the Sea, so it is the perfect location. There are so many opportunities to include the Sydney businesses and other organizations in our success and make this a destination event. And one of our organization's missions is to endorse and support environmental initiatives. So with each event that we host, we donate a portion of proceeds to support local habitat conservation projects. The Faerie Fair has an established partnership with Nature Trust of BC, and our intent for the Sales and Sagas event is to partner with a second charity organization involved with ocean-specific conservation efforts to align with our nautical theme. So here we are, we're offering to provide this community with a very unique, high-value cultural event that offers affordable, family-friendly activities and brings economic benefits to our community. Now I'm gonna hand the mic over to Joanne, who's gonna talk about safety and security.
Hello.
Hello, my name is Joanne Erickson. Some of you know me, some maybe not yet, but soon. With safety and security at such a large event is one of our primary concerns. We wanted to keep the public safe, of course, during all the festivities so that everyone has an amazing adventure during the Sales and Saga event. You will find all the intricate details in the files that have been sent. As an overview, I'll just go over some of our key items. Central information and safety booth will be set up near the entrance for our main entrance so that we can have an on-site command post. All communications between the event staff and security staff will be managed with a two-way radio system. We have broken down all the potential hazards into high risk and general risk, then created a detailed response and directive plan for each item. It is more detailed in the papers that they have given you. And I'll make an example. We have a show that has been will be performed by Mythmaker Troupe. They're a fully licensed and insured fire performance group. Our show area will be secured by markers, tape, and cones to prevent crowding. It will be supervised by dedicated security and fire staff. We will have fire extinguishers and safety equipment on hand during the entire performance. And we will be reaching out to the fire department to make sure we adhere to all their guidelines and safety rules and regulations. We will have a main stage and a PA system that will be the primary tool for all public announcements. That will include emergencies or any kind of evacuation that needs to happen. As an example, if a child is found, the staff and volunteers will immediately escort the child to the main stage. There we will have the child remain with a designated pre-screened volunteer, and then we will be calling out the missing parents' names and hopefully reuniting the distressed child. And then again, if a parent reports a child missing, we will be escorting the parents to the main stage. And staff will get a detailed description of the child, and we will radio a yellow alert to all staff and security with this description. Security will immediately close the main gates and all exit areas. Should it happen that the child could not be found within 10 minutes, the event directors will then be calling the RCMP. We all know medical emergencies happen no matter where we are, so for this event we will have professional medical attendants on site. Their tent will be clearly marked on our event site map located near the information booth. All staff and security witnessing any kind of a medical event will immediately radio all the medical team to the location. In case of a severe emergency, the medical lead or event director will call 911 and guide the paramedics directly to the patient. Of course, to do that safely, we have to have emergency access. So we will have 15-foot wide emergency access lanes all throughout each of the areas. So there'll be easy access for anyone in any place that we have. That brings us to who will help with these things. We will employ a licensed and uniformed security team throughout the event. There will be stationed at access control points like the main gate. They will be doing perimeter patrols around our fenced areas. We will have them at the tavern for ID check. They will also be doing cash handling escorts and monitoring high-risk areas. All security staff are trained in de-escalation. Any unruly or intoxicated persons will be peacefully removed from the event by security. Our CMP will be called if it is necessary for them to assist. And then we move on to insurance, which is something that everybody is excited that we would have. Four Wands Faerie events will provide proof of insurance for the entire event, naming the town of Sydney as an additional insured party. As you can see, safety is a high priority for this event. If there are any additional areas you would like more details on that are not in the package, do let us know. We will be sure to give you more information and address the issues in question. We have put lots of thought and care into the proposal and aim to have a spectacular safety success.
You're coming close to your 10 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you kindly. My name is Chip McFarlane. I'm here to speak a little bit about the intended cultural and socioeconomic intents of our plan. I'm from Sydney, close to Sydney. I share this trait with my other co-showrunners, my colleagues. We are raising our families here. We have grown up on and around Sydney's fine beaches. We've grown up in its parks. We've got our experience in its storefronts, delivering its services. We've visited the libraries. We've delivered all sorts of experiences to the people that we want to grow, work, and play with here in Sydney. A big motivation for us developing this event was so that we could build on Sydney's identity culturally and bring more interest and experience to the people who want to bring their tourism and spend their money in town with us. To this end, we have participated in a number of different parades around town, such as the Christmas Parade and the Pride Parade this year. We have worked with the library to support children's literacy by delivering some workshops through that venue as well. And we, as mentioned before, have worked with BC Nature Trust to establish a relationship to help endorse and support any of the environmental impacts that we can help to bring betterment to the area that we work in, so that we can leave it better than we found it and help to see the experience flourish for the people that we want to bring to Sydney to help grow the cultural identity that we see our show can help add on to the rapport that Sydney already has. As mentioned before, we are looking to leverage some of the more interesting aspects that Sydney already has on the table, such as its history with rum running and pirates, going with that theme, being Sydney on the sea, having that beautiful view that's directly there from Iroquois Park. We want to share this environment with the people that we're looking to bring in to Sydney and show what a great place this is to experience for all ages. And as mentioned before, we're running out of space. We've had too many people show an interest in vending and attending our events, and if we want to see this stay in Sydney, we're going to have to expand on our venue, and Iroquois Park is the natural choice, and we do very much want to stay in Sydney. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Before we go to possible questions from council, I'm going to turn to our Director of Engineering, Mr. Murphy, or Manager of Engineering, Mr. Demare, if you'd like to introduce your report briefly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, the report brings forward the request from Four Wands to host their event at Iroquois Park for September 26th and 27th next year, 2026. I think the event organizer did a good job representing what the event is about and their background and their organization. So I have nothing to add on that side of things. The report does provide some potential recommendations if council wishes to support the event.
Thank you for that. I'll turn to colleagues. Do we have any questions of the presenters or staff on this item? Councillor O'Keefe, please.
Thank you. Thank you for your, question is for you guys. Thanks for the presentation. My adult son will be interested, excited. He's got a thing about pirates. Anyways, so cool idea. My question is about, you talked about having 3,000 to 4,000 people. It's a lot of people. I wondered whether you considered having a bike valet service, which is something that we've, as a town, started to incorporate at our markets and on Canada, big events like that, to encourage people to bike to community events like this rather than bring their cars.
Yeah, that's not something we've considered, but we would definitely consider it. I mean, we have other thoughts and ideas on how to reduce the traffic and get people to attend on foot, on bike, by public transit, for sure. So that, thank you for the idea. We'll definitely look into that.
Yeah, okay, good. And just another question for you. I know from staff, and you mentioned it, wanting to make it accessible, people with strollers or people with mobility devices. Any other sorts of things you're doing in terms of accessibility to make it, an event that people with, different mobility challenges, not just with strollers, but kids in wheelchairs or that sort of thing, how though they might be accommodated.
Right. So we're not adding any infrastructure to the park, so the accessibility is what it is. However, some things that came up with our last event, people had written us asking for certain accessible requests. And so one thing that came up was places to sit. People who couldn't walk for, long distances would like lots of available seating. So we can provide that. Another thing that came up was overstimulation. So for people who suffer from autism, for example, just having a quiet place with less, stimulating things around them. Quiet place. Like, we were so crowded last time. People were very grateful to be able to walk outside the Mary Winspear Center and find a spot in the grass. They reported to us that was very helpful to have that.
Right. Okay. And one other thing you might want to think about, which we've done, started to do with some of our events, is having more parking, accessible parking, dedicated for people who need that, so they can get close by.
We would like to enable a drop-off zone on the side street that's kind of along that one fence area. It's called Ocean Street. Is that the one? Yeah. So because it's not such a great area when it gets quite crammed with cars, even when we do soccer, we were thinking we'd put a drop-off zone along that fence line so that people can drive up, drop off their family members and stuff, and then head out to go and park. And our parking area that we have been looking at is the Anacortes Faerie parking lot. So we've been looking into renting that space to park vehicles in. That way, if we had a drop-off zone, families, then someone can go and drive and park the car and come back.
Okay. Well, one thing I would just bring to you for your awareness is that you're making the assumption that the person driving the car is an able-bodied person. And so there's lots of families where one of the parents or grandparents is driving that vehicle. And so having a drop-off where they can drop off their able-bodied kids, but then they have to park far away would be problematic. So just something to factor into your thinking.
Yeah. Anacortes has all of the easy access places for wheelchairs and stuff to walk across the roads there. There's highlighted crosswalks and such. So I feel like that whole zone is very well made for different kinds of wheeled access. And of course, scooters and stuff in Sydney are quite rampant, and they are welcome to come. Our area there with those blue tents, that is our vendor area, and all the spaces in between are 15 feet wide.
Great. Okay, thank you. That's all for me.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor O'Toole, please, followed by Councillor Garnett.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation to you, Alison, and your colleagues. I commend you on getting, I think, an early start on this in the sense that it's obviously a big event, and you've done it before, and it shows in terms of your approach to dealing with this. I think you've been proactive even prior to it coming forward tonight, and that's appreciated. Having said that, I'll just be clear. I've got some concerns based on the volume of people that you're anticipating, and so I'll give you the opportunity to address a couple of those points. And first of all, let's talk about the Mary Winspear Centre and your conversations there. Had you explored, a tent on that back patio or a tent in some of the parking areas at the Mary Winspear Centre to give yourself some additional exhibition capacity?
Are you asking if we made use of the courtyard?
I'm asking if you contemplated doing so for 2026 if you were to retain that same venue.
Okay, so we do have an event planned in March at the Mary Winspear Centre. So to address the crowding issues, what we are doing for this next one, which we're hoping may be our last one there, depending on the attendance this time, is we've expanded it from a 1-day to a 2-day. So that might spread out the attendees. If we get the same number of attendees, it might spread it out over 2 days instead of cramming them all in 1 day. We've also rented more of the venue, so we have almost the whole venue this time, whereas the first time we only had the Bonine Hall and the courtyard. So we will continue using the courtyard again, and we'll see how our spring event goes. If this Iroquois Park falls through, that will be something we will have to consider. The other thing we could do is just put a cap on the sales and make it a strictly online sale and not sell tickets at the door.
Yeah, good. Thanks. I mean, that goes towards my next line of questioning. Where's your sweet spot and what drives that? So obviously, if you're limited by the venue, I guess that's what your number is in terms of pre-selling admission.
Right.
And I take it the same would apply to September 2026, regardless of which venue you're pursuing. With that in mind, where are you getting this number, sort of 3,000 to 4,000? Is that over the 2 days? And,
yes.
And what leads you to come up with
that number? So based on the attendance, so it's lots of things that factor into that number. So based on our attendance that we attracted last time and anticipating a growth, also based on similar events on Vancouver Island and beyond. For example, in Coombs this summer, there was a medieval fair, which is the same audience that we are attracting, had 5,000 people show up in Coombs for a medieval festival.
5,000 1 day or over the 2 days?
2 days. 5,000 people over 2 days.
Okay. Thank you very much. And if I may, Mayor, through you to staff, there was the suggestion with regard to parking at the ferry terminal. Is that a dialogue that staff has entered into at this point, or something that would be explored should this matter proceed or progress?
Through the mayor to Councillor Renewal. Early discussions have been made. We have met with the organizer in advance, had some good discussions on ideas, potential, how they're going to manage traffic in that area. And I've had some initial discussions with the operator of the Washington State Ferry along that. There's still some more details that would have to be flushed through, but there's potential for that.
Thank you. And then just further to that, do we know what the capacity may be for parking in that space, number of vehicles for events such as this?
I haven't done an analysis. It would really depend on what area of the grounds are used and how they organize it. Right now, obviously, it's organized for ferry traffic and lines versus parking is a little bit different. So that's something that the organizer and with staff would have to look at to see how to best organize that space.
Okay. I was going to push you to throw a dart, but I won't. Thanks, Bruce. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Gurnett, followed by Councillor Duck, Councillor Duncan, Councillor Novak.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll have a question for staff first, and then I'll for the presenters. Just looking at the recommendation 1E, and there was discussion in your report about the soccer organizations. Do we need to add cricket in that resolution, given that they're also a user of those fields?
Through the mayor to Councillor Garnett. Good point. Cricket typically ends the season the month prior when we look at our schedules, but we would incorporate all users. We spoke to the soccer, but yeah, any of those sort of traditional users.
Okay, good, thank you. And to the presenters, thank you very much for your presentation. Appreciate you answering questions as well. I have just a handful here. Given your past experiences last year, where would you expect most of your attendees would come from? Would they be the Peninsula, the CRD, Vancouver?
Yes. So we did an analysis. We sent out a survey. We have info from our ticket sales and from our social media pages, and they were all showing similar results across the board. So we are confident in saying that approximately 75% came from the Greater Victoria area, and the rest, I think it was like 23% came from Vancouver Island, and then the remaining percent came from the mainland or the US.
Okay, thank you. Back on the parking theme again, and I was just thinking of the fact that given its location and its proximity to the Mary Winspear Center and the employer downtown parking lot we have, I'm sure people would use that venue. Have you given consideration to having parking attendants? Because you're talking about Friday, Saturday, I think it is, or Saturday, Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And given that some of these users may not know that parking lot, I'd be afraid of overspill into the Mary Winspear, and they typically will have events as well, and they'll need their parking. So there would be some kind of delineation there so that people aren't parking in areas where they shouldn't. So I was curious if you guys have thought about that idea or not.
We have thought about it, so we're coming up with solutions to that, yes.
Okay, thank you. The Mythmaker fire show that you spoke to, you
Yes.
spoke to it a little bit. Can you elaborate exactly what that is? It's great to have safety protocols, but I don't know what that's for.
Okay. Yeah, I would describe, they're kind of a unique thing. I would describe them maybe like a circus troupe. They were performers at Burning Man, so they have a lot of festival experience. They're directed by one creative genius. He's just a most phenomenal guy. He sat on the Art Council of Canada, so just to give you an idea of these artists that we're inviting. So it's a fire-spinning storytelling experience. So they play music, they spin fire, so they have batons that light up. And as they're doing this, they're telling a story. So with this Viking theme, they will probably do some kind of Norse myth as their performance. And so it'll be a 20 to 30 minute performance, and then that will close the Saturday night of our show.
Okay, thank you. Just two more, and then my next question is around the cannon fire demonstration. So, non-projectile, great. What exactly is loud? Because I'm just considering that where you are located, there are neighbors,
Yes.
and so depending on the time of day you do it, how many times you might be doing it, and it is close to an environmentally sensitive area as well. So,
Right.
in terms of the migratory bird fowl and what impact that could have on them, so
True.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. When you say loud, I'm like, okay, how loud is it? And if it's fine if you're telling people around the area that it's happening, but if people are in their homes don't know what's happening, that's a whole other issue
We
altogether.
would include that in our notices to the neighborhood that we would have a schedule, so around this time. I don't know if any of you have been to the Highland Games, but that's who we were going to reach out to, the 78th Fraser group, and see if they could bring their cannon, because they're the ones that man it at the Highland Games. So it is loud. Yeah, we can discuss it. That was just one idea that we put forward, given the pirate theme.
Right, and just one last question.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned perimeter fencing.
Mm-hmm.
Will there be something similar around your area where you're serving alcohol?
So my understanding with the alcohol permit is that as long as the site is fenced, you don't need a fenced area and you don't need a beverage garden. That law was lifted in 2014.
Okay.
So as long as the site is fenced and there are controlled exit points, a beverage garden is not necessary.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank
you, Mayor.
Councillor Garnett. Councillor Duck, please.
Thank you, Mayor. A few questions first, if I could, through to staff. Is part of the development of given the what my colleagues have mentioned about traffic and parking, will there be a traffic and parking management plan?
Through the mayor to Councillor Duck, yes, as a requirement, we'll be asking for traffic management parking plan be submitted for review by the town.
Thank you. Now, if I may, through to the proponents, thank you for your presentation. I look forward to the event. I think it's a great thing to see this coming to Sydney, certainly for the diverse audience you intend to attract. A couple of questions, and you just mentioned the liquor area in there, and what is the height of the fencing surrounding the whole event?
Yeah, that sounds, you see them at like construction sites, the
Okay.
6
Yeah,
feet.
I would make sure you check that. 6 feet would be the minimum you want, because 4 feet won't cut it, because they'll just launch themselves over it.
Okay.
Further to one of my colleagues' comments on the bike valet, is Capital Bike offers that service, and I'm sure
Oh,
that you'd be
perfect.
interested in providing that. They do it for us in Sydney, and have done it at other events I go to, so they do a good job of it, and
Thank you.
well coordinated in that respect.
Perfect.
Given you're having this volume of number of people coming through, what's the waste management plan for that area?
So we're still doing a lot of research in that area. We will probably have to rent a dumpster and find a site for that to sit during the event, and then have garbage cans strategically placed. There was a company that just came on probably a nonprofit organization who tries to reduce the waste. They work for festivals, they sort the garbage and try to make as little waste as possible. So if we can hire them and possibly get that zero waste grant from the CRD, that is something that we're looking into.
Great idea. I was just part of an event, the Royal Victoria Marathon, that they did that on, and did a phenomenal job of separating trash so that you can send to what's recycling and bring it right down to what is locally garbage.
Phenomenal numbers
So,
they're showing, yes.
highly recommend that, because you will have that volume through there. And certainly there will be town garbage cans in the neighborhood, and one of
Yes.
the challenges is they don't get overflowing because of overflow of garbage from your event. Do you have a plan for weather? Given that southwesters come in from that direction, and your tents will be exposed to high winds.
Yeah, high winds would be a problem, so we might have to prepare to shut down early, but hopefully we picked a time of year where our biggest concern would be rain, and if it's just rain, we will continue the event.
Okay, thank you. And another question, if I may, through to staff. Is that field underground irrigated?
Through the mayor to Councillor Duck, I believe it is irrigated, yes.
Okay, so one of the considerations will be, obviously, in putting up the number of tents you're putting up there, is that you can't drive the spikes into the ground because of the
Yes.
irrigation system.
We will inform our vendors that weights are
Yeah.
mandatory.
So you're gonna play that game between wind and anchoring.
Yeah, I've been a vendor. I've done hundreds of festivals for 15 years. So I've been a vendor in every type of weather. So I completely understand the risks. I've seen tents get flipped in windstorms, and we definitely don't want that to happen.
Thank you. I look forward to the event. I think it'll be a phenomenal event. Thank you for your information. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Duncan, please.
Thanks. Hopefully I won't cover anything somebody's already brought up. I think I was just going to note, I know you heard from parking a lot. I'm sure you know that in Sydney, that'll be the one thing most people focus on. So as long as you've got that right, everyone will be happy. And if you don't, you'll hear about it forever. I would say for your canon, this is one of the flight paths, and being on the airport noise committee, this is one of the ones where it's really loud. So if you can get an idea of the decibel volume, and then from the V8, then you'll kind of have an idea, is this within the loudness that people are used to in this neighborhood and not, just for your own check, and then you'll be able to deal with any public comment questions you get about the typical amount of noise you get here, because we know it's loud there already. I would say the Mary Winspear, I thought about that parking lot and I realized, I think that's the weekend of their 25th anniversary, and I realized I couldn't find the notes where I had it. So that could be your conflict for there. They're having a 2-day event for that. So I would check with them and make sure you guys aren't both creating a parking draw at the same time. Soil protection, Councillor Duck kind of touched on that one. I would be looking at it because we share it with the sports that if there's things you can do to minimize soil compaction, just so that there might be less cleanup at the end, that would be great. If, you know, like the plywood to distribute weight, things you're probably used to as a vendor, but I would be concerned about if there's the potential for rutting. So just looking at your drip lines and the creation of things that might become a churned mud pit, particularly when you're trying to make it accessible for scooters and things like that. But hopefully end of September will be not so bad. And I guess the last question I had was, one of you briefly mentioned Sydney's history of rum running. Will you actually be able to include that history, have something in there? Because it's interesting, right? And it would be really fun. I bet you the museum would really enjoy you being able to bring that up.
One of the things that we're really fond of is the whimsical orientation that the island has for having characters and history that have to do with, like there's a pirate king that lives in Nanaimo, and that's great. And there's a whole bunch of really missed opportunities, I think, for us to be building on that mythology and bringing back some of the better history of storytelling that we could be putting in front of our locals and our explorers who come to the island. And there's nothing that's more piratey than rum running. So I think that any opportunity that we can get to find cool stories to tell and pin them onto the actors and performers that we're bringing in, and through them proxy into the guests who themselves are going to be dressing up and presenting and performing. It's just, interactivity is the best way to do that. And if you can teach somebody through interactive means, you're doing a good job.
Yeah, that would be really fun. There's some very strange characters used to be on the boats around Victoria in the back in the day, so that would be really fun. Thanks for that. And I think everybody else had the questions I had, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And lastly, I'll turn to Councillor Novak.
Thank you, and thank you very much for your presentation. I think this is going to be a terrific asset for town of Sydney, both from a tourist perspective and for locals. My colleagues have asked many questions, some of which I would have asked had I been first on the list, but I'm last, so this will be quick. I've only got two concerns. One of them is the mead hall. Sounds like a great name for a beer garden, but my question is twofold. First of all, will the hours of the mead hall align exactly with the opening hours of the festival?
Yeah, so my plan would be, I don't know if we will open them when we open. We might not open, we'll have to discuss it, but there might be a delay in opening, like the mead hall, for example. But our last call would be right before the fire show. And then they would close and the focus would be on the fire show, so there wouldn't be drinking during that performance.
Great. Yeah, my concern was not so much at the beginning, but at the end that the hours of the mead hall wouldn't continue on after.
Right. Yeah,
after
we would
the
have a
gates are
last
closed.
call a little bit earlier. Yes.
And secondly, just a comment as somebody who's spent many years working festivals as a medic. I would offer a suggestion that perhaps the medical tent would be adjacent to Ocean Avenue, because when you've got 3,000 or 4,000 people on site, even with 15-foot corridors, you're not going to get an ambulance in there. So if your medical tent is adjacent to Ocean Avenue, you've got easy access for ambulance and equally easy access from the festival grounds to the medical tent.
Okay,
That's
great suggestion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Novak. I'll turn to Councillor O'Keefe for a second time.
Thank you. My question through you, Mayor, through staff, on the topic of parking again at the Anacortes Ferry Terminal. So I recall we've talked about this before in relation to opening up that area during the summer for people to park. for boats and that sort of thing. And my recollection is that we didn't move forward with that because it was a lot more complicated than we thought. My recollection from that time is that there would be significant staff time involved in order to reconfigure the lines, probably costs to repaint. I don't know whether we would repaint them. There's also, I think, only one entryway, only one way in and out of there. So there was talk about whether we might have to reconfigure the fencing and open it up somehow. And so the end result was that it was too expensive, too time consuming and complicated. And so I'm a little bit concerned about that aspect and staff having to spend a lot of time and the town expense just to open that for one event. So I'm wondering if things have changed since then that would make this easier, or whether we've come up with some other plans that might make it work easier than had been anticipated in the past.
Through the mayor to Councillor O'Keefe. I sort of see this as a sort of a one-off. I appreciate your comments from previous, like opening it just as an open public parking. In this, I would see a lot more detail have to go into it from the applicant in terms of parking attendance to make sure, because it's not the idea to reline it or do any significant changes to it. So I think we have to sort of work with what's there. I foresee, parking attendants to be able to direct people where they're supposed to park at, similar to most large events when they're parking in fields, to keep that under control and organized. That's sort of how I sort of see that potentially, how that may work. But good points that in the past it wasn't going to work just as an open parking area unattended. I'm not sure if Mr. Edwards has anything to add to that.
Thank you. Through the mayor, I just would like to echo our manager of engineering's comments that they're not really the same types of parking situations, and so this would not require the same amount of effort on our staff side to pull off. But most definitely, if it were to try to be changed over to an open public parking, then that is a tremendous amount of effort.
Okay, thanks. And I guess sort of related is, parking for the like boat trailers and that sort of thing. I guess I'd be interested if we go ahead with this for this event to kind of gather some lessons learned from that, and whether there might be, if that might be, we might be able to accommodate that in the summer months. If there was, say, the Peninsula, the Sydney anglers or people there who could supervise that in the same way as these folks. So something for another time, but thanks for the response.
Thanks, Councillor. I'll turn to Councillor Toole for a second time.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to staff. I guess I should know this because along with colleagues, we've handed out lots of ice cream there in Canada today, but is there the staff have an estimate in the number of participants, attendees that come through the park on Canada Day? Anecdotal or not?
Through the mayor to Councillor Renewal, I'd be taking a bit of shot in the dark if you wanted that dart again. Yeah, I'm sure there's several thousand out there during that event. It's usually pretty well attended through the day.
Yeah, and I think that's the key. Thank you. Yeah, I think if I were gonna throw a dart, I might not have gone to several thousand, but I'm thinking of, there's a lot of ebb and flow with that event. There's no admission, so people kind of come for half an hour and drift through. And just looking at the site plan here and the number of exhibitor tents, consuming a lot of that open space that we typically have. So I continue to contemplate the volume that's anticipated for this event. Are staff aware of on this weekend, typically any other events that the town normally sees? I know we heard reference to something potentially at the Mary Winspear Center this weekend, but other events that you have on the calendar, not already, but in past, that gravitate to this weekend?
From past experience, nothing this in late September events in that area or in Sydney generally?
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no further questions, we do have a staff recommendation, and I would just remind Council that while there is a more lengthy recommendation with several points in the staff report, the recommendation on the agenda makes reference to grouping several of those recommendations, so we don't need to read them all out. So if someone would like to move the staff recommendation but read from the recommendation in the agenda, please. Councillor Duck.
Yes, Mayor, we'll proceed with the recommendation with one amendment, if I may. Number one, that the request for Four Winds Faerie events, Four Wands, to hold their sales and Sagas, a private event for September 26th to 27th, 2026 at Iroquois Park Soccer Field, including the use of amplification, be approved subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report. And I want just to add, there's
Sorry, I might suggest if you're going to add that you add it after the at the end of the recommendation presented.
Well, it would be part of that one. It'd be 1K. So I'm just suggesting that it would be part of one, but I can do that at the end. And two, that the request for the Four Wands Faerie events to serve alcohol at the private event proposed for Iroquois Park Soccer Field for September 26, 27, 2026 be approved subject to the following conditions. A special event liquor permit be obtained from the Provincial Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch for this event. And B, a copy of the special event liquor permit is provided to the town.
Okay, so Councillor, just for efficiency, I'm going to suggest that we seek a seconder to the staff recommendation, and if you'd like to move as the mover, if you'd like to move an amendment, we can certainly consider that.
Second.
We have it seconded. Is that your amendment, Councillor?
Yes, as was suggested in communications, I believe from yourself, the Mayor, that we seek 1K, and I'm just looking for it right now. That sorry, I'm just going through my. Here it is. That the hours of operation of alcohol drinks sales be reviewed by staff and the RCMP.
And do we have a seconder for the amendment?
Second.
Second. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That carries. So now speaking to the amended motion, you were the mover, Councillor.
Yeah, I'm happy to see this event come to Sydney. I think it will be a new dynamic event for Sydney. It's certainly a good economic driver. Certainly, we've expressed some concerns about an event this size taking place. So I think the proponent has addressed most of those and is certainly taking considerations in how they do it best. And their cooperation and consideration with staff, I think the event will be well planned and well staged. The proponent has done this in the past and certainly with success. As a past event planner myself, I think they've dotted the I's and crossed the T's in most part, and I look forward to a new exciting event coming to Sydney. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll turn to the seconder, Councillor Duncan.
Nothing to add.
Councillor Gurnett.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just through you to staff, in terms of the amendments, are we okay not adding cricket into the conditions we put in there, or just leave that for staff just to do? What that would your preference? Okay, perfect. Yeah, no. My only, the concerns are going to be around if there is a 25th anniversary. Parking could be a concern, so that's something for the proponents just to. Yeah, probably the sooner you get in touch with the Mary Winspear, the better. I would suggest. And the cannon. Can't stress that enough, that you make sure that if it is as loud as you're assuming it's going to be, that you have a real conversation or notification to the neighbors, because when there was a building being built there and they were blasting, they didn't tell some of the residents, and they were experiencing what they thought was an earthquake. So just, yeah, it would be great if you could be neighborly in this presentation. That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gurnett. Sir, I'm going to go to Councillor O'Keefe and I'll come back to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I had anticipated adding something into the recommendations about accessibility considerations, but in correspondence from staff, I understand that's part of our normal application process anyways, and that you do that, so I don't think that's required. But again, I just highlight to the organizers that's an important concern. And just one other thing I'll add in regards to ensuring that there's other perhaps other events going on that weekend, I might suggest that we put the organizers in touch with the SBIA, and they chair the SEAG, the Sydney Events Advisory Group. And one of the reasons for that group is to compare notes on who's doing events at what time to ensure there's no conflict. So that would be good to let the SEAG group aware of the event. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Keefe. I'm going to Councillor Duncan, then Councillor Renewal, then myself.
Yeah, my apologies. It was only when Councillor Garnett brought up his point that I would say, if you know what times the cannons will be fired, to place that on a sign so the neighborhood will know cannon will go off at these times. And again, contact the Victoria Airport Authority. If you can get an idea of like the decibels of planes, you compare it. Like decibels of this will be this. Typical planes you hear in this neighborhood is this, so that people understand what they're hearing and how loud to expect it. And I realized I actually had notes from the San Ynez Peninsula Accessibility Committee that kind of pertain to things like that, is about having diverse standards for the symbols that we have on things. So I'm thinking people with hearing aids being notified of when these things will happen is just really helpful for them. So thanks.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Renewal.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'll start by thanking the organizers for hosting the event, previously in Sydney. And from my perspective, the event as envisioned and as planned for growth has perhaps gone beyond my comfort level for this particular venue suggestion. And I think I would have preferred to have seen you work within the capacity of the Mary Winspear Centre, which is a purpose-designed facility for events of this nature, and have what I thought probably could have been an extremely successful event, giving you a little more capacity if you use that patio space and some parking space at the Mary Winspear Centre on a hardtop surface, more or less a venue designed for exactly this purpose. And I may struggle, again, just based on the size and scale of this as proposed, with this sort of private commercial event taking place in the public park, and recognize that it will require a tremendous amount of staff support, and I recognize you'll be paying for that as part of the operation. But for me, in terms of the potential for wear and tear on this location on a well-used soccer field in our community by multiple soccer groups, I'm just a little concerned about this site and venue. And if we'd had cap numbers, cap participants, something of that nature, I might have been more inclined to support it. But again, I appreciate your ongoing interest in holding your events in Sydney. I think you're right. It's a great venue for something like this. I'm just not convinced this volume is appropriate for what's been suggested here. I won't support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Novick.
Thank you, Mayor. I will, of course, support this motion. I think this is a great idea. I think it's a great event, not something I might personally attend. If my grandchildren were here, yes, that's another story. But how I see it is that it's an excellent use of Town of Sydney facilities. We have all these parks that do well to host this type of event. And I can't remember, certainly in the time that I've been in Sydney, another event of this type being held in that park. And this could easily serve as a baseline or a benchmark, depending on how well it goes. And I understand my colleagues' reticence or concerns. Yes, these types of events are never without complications. That's why you have organizers and security teams and medical teams, et cetera, et cetera. But I would not be at all surprised if after this event we start to see other groups coming to us with similar events. And I think that puts Sydney on the map. I think it makes Sydney an exciting place to live and visit. It's the sort of thing we want to generate people coming to town with their dollars to spend, however they choose to do it. And typically for events like this, people drop X number of dollars at this event. They're also likely to be dropping dollars at many local merchants. So I'm sure that it'll stand the town in good stead. So I'm happy to see this sort of start the ball rolling for this type of event. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Novick. I'm going to begin with a question. I'd just like to probe one aspect of this a little further, and that is, I will turn to Councillor Duncan, who made reference to the Mary Winspear's 25th anniversary that same weekend, and you seemed to indicate it was going to be a 2-day event?
Yeah, and I haven't brought it forward before because they were still kind of going through the planning of also making it a family-friendly event. And they don't know really what they're going to be having, but obviously they're using their own venue. They didn't mention using outside the venue, but let's see if I have the date on this one. September 19th, sorry, I think is actually where I had it, but I don't know if that's what they booked. So it's one of those 2 weekends. Obviously, it would be better for the operators to confirm that rather than take my word for it, but.
No,
yeah.
Thank you for that. And I might turn to the operator, Ms. Spokes, if you could come forward for a moment. Thank you. Do you have, I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you have any degree of flexibility in terms of which weekend in September that you do this?
We have some flexibility in dates, yes.
I was also going to suggest or ask if you had attended a CAG meeting, the Sydney Event Advisory Group, that kind of coordinates larger events in different parts of the municipality and the region. I'll leave it that with that. You've heard if Mary Winspear is running a 2-day 25th anniversary, a family fun event, there's going to be any parking available.
Okay.
Because that will be jammed in of itself.
Okay.
It will have thousands of people attending. So again, we're not confirming, but staff can certainly put you in touch with CAG.
Okay.
Or you could contact the Winspear Center
Absolutely.
yourself.
Yeah, we're willing to be flexible with dates if you are.
So let me turn, thank you for taking the question. And while you're at the podium again, thank you for your presentation.
Oh.
This is an exciting opportunity and new event for Sydney. We appreciate all the detail and thought that you've put behind this. And thank you, as Councillor Renewal indicated earlier, for coming forward a year in advance or nearly a year in advance. That gives a lot of time to work with staff, to work with other external agencies, whether it's the RCMP, the Winspear Center, the BIA, to really make the best, the highest opportunity for success for this event. We appreciate that there's an economic component to this. There's going to be significant cost for you to put on this event. And certainly you want to have a great event, but you try to want to, if I can use the term, maximize, your attendance, which enhances your economic opportunity. I would just give consideration while you always, as a business owner, you're always thinking of what opportunity exists, but you also want to have an efficient event. If this event for some reason was overrun, it's not going to leave a good impression going forward in the future.
Sure.
So Councillor's Renewal consideration of having a cap, whatever you think that is reasonable. I'll just make a brief comment. I really don't want to get into the weeds, but just the number of vendor locations you have there in that area, I'm not even going to ask the number, but that is going to be very, very crowded, and if it's successful, it's going to be extremely crowded. So I just wanted to express that we appreciate that there is an economic component to this, but at the same time, we want to see you have a very successful event that can come back in future years.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor O'Keefe.
Thank you. Pondering Councillor Renewal's comments about the capacity, and I have some concerns about that as well. And I think, I believe I will support the motion because I think it's an exciting new event. However, I think what's different about this is that if this event was at the Mary Winspear Center, I presume, I'm not sure what the rental costs are there, but they're significant, in the thousands of dollars, I would think, in order to rent the facility for the day. And for the park, our fees are relatively light, I understand from staff, but we're reviewing that. But what I'd also be interested, and I think staff are looking into this, so I'm looking forward to hearing more in terms of damage deposit for the field, which I think has been discussed. And so anticipating what town staff might have to do or who we might have to hire to help put the field back into shape again. So I think those are really important considerations. So we kind of don't get left holding the bag to kind of fix up that field after, 4,000 or so people have been on it for the whole weekend in potentially wet, mucky conditions. So just my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, I'll now look to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Renewal is opposed. The motion carries. Thank you again for everyone that came forward on this event this evening. You're more than welcome to stay for the balance of the meeting or into the meeting, but I'm sure you may have some more interesting things to do this evening, so we'll just pause for a moment. We make it very interesting. Okay, we'll continue with our agenda. We don't have anything under bylaws or development permits this evening. I'll turn and seek a motion to approve the minutes of our regular council meeting of October 14th.
So moved.
Moved by Councillors Duck and Novick. Any corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, those in favor? None opposed, that carries. The next item is we come to with business is council reports. I'll turn to Councillor Duncan for your verbal reports this evening, please.
I'm sorry. I have brief notes from 5 different meetings. I can hear them cheering in the hallway. It's a no, it's not for me. The first one is from the Sagas Peninsula Accessibility Advisory Committee from September 25th, which I attended on behalf of Councillor O'Keefe, who was at, was it UBCM? UBCM. Where she had actually brought forward a motion from SPAC regarding accessibility, which went through, as far as I know, very well. And the things that were discussed at that meeting, again, were Central Saanich has implemented hearing accessibility measures in their council chamber. All municipalities are kind of looking at being able to do that as well. And SPAC has been looking at kind of expanding their comments on diversifying the accessibility standards using symbols that are for, I guess, a broader range of abilities than we currently cover. Most people are familiar with maybe hearing aid and wheelchair, but I guess there are other symbols for other types of disabilities that can sometimes be incorporated to help people, so they're looking at those. One of the things they were looking at is the standards for the barricades and being able to get around these things that, again, as standards change around public venues and having barricades and traffic management, they're having to kind of update the standards for pedestrian movement and those who are using mobility aids to get around through those areas. And the comment that had been brought forward to the Accessibility Committee regarding being able to earmark in lieu funds for parking due to development that we had downtown and then paying in lieu for accessibility. And everyone was generally in agreement with having this continue to be a variance process because they didn't want something that was cookie cutter. That doesn't usually help them either. And so it was it seemed like a really good discussion where staff and people on the committee, from what I could observe, because it was the only meeting I've been to, they seem to work well together with developing these standards. The next committee, I guess I'll just keep going, and then if at the end anyone has a question about these, we can do that.
Sounds good.
Do that then? Okay. The Regional Water Supply Committee, the one thing I'll bring forward to here is that we got a first report back from the consultants on an amalgamation study that we requested. Actually, the Peninsula Water Committee had requested this one because we have the Peninsula Water Service being different from The regional one, due to kind of a historical factors, it was there first, and then the CRD built around it. And now that we don't have our own separate water supply, we wanted to evaluate whether it was efficient for us to use it, because we have council, each mayor has a spot at that table, we have the same staff attending the meetings, and whether it would be better to absorb that service. And the consultant looked at it and kind of worked out that at first blush, if we did that, the water rates for the users on the peninsula would go down, but for everybody else, they would go up. And everyone else in the room was made them hesitant about that. Obviously, we wanted to incorporate a benefiter pays kind of a schema, and as far as they could tell, they weren't sure how the rest of the core area benefited from being able to take over the peninsula service. And so we will be getting additional reports kind of looking at that to make sure that works out. And then we'll be kind of reporting back on that more. Noise committee meeting from October 21st. Just an interesting thing from the airport, that since they've implemented their new noise reporting, which is just through a form for the airport over the past couple of years, the noise complaints have gone down, and they're hoping this means that because it's actually made getting responses quicker for them, and the processing and the recording and getting back to people, that it actually means that they've been doing a good job with outreach, and people aren't wondering what the noises are anymore. Though it seems the biggest reason it's gone down is that we didn't have any spongy moth spraying, and that's usually really loud. So it could go back up again. Artsy on October 23rd. The studio tour that they had this year was actually the best sale weekend of their career for one artist. It was the 3,500 visits each day for that weekend for the people who are participating. So this year was really great for them. What I thought was interesting is that in terms of the artists that participated, 46% were actually in North Saanich and 26% were in Sydney. And then the rest were from parts abroad. And so Artsy, of course, has been attending North Saanich meetings to discuss with them about funding arrangements and making sure that they understand how important the service is to their municipality as well. They had their gallery, that was the participants who were there in the gallery during the repaving of the parking lot. Some of them were felt that it did affect their showing, and so they will be refunding them partially for that work. So hopefully we continue to have a good working relationship with this organization and can help them out in making sure it doesn't feel so personal to the people who end up there next time. Did I get them all? 1, 2, 3, 4. I think, the last one was from the Mary Winspear Center, which was just to mention the CRD bylaw 4704 that went to the CRD board, which approved it, and which is to have the Charlie White Theatre be one of the 3 venues that falls under a new CRD service for the performing arts, to make sure that they're all adequately funded, and the Mary Winspear Center was very happy to have that CRD support. And that's it.
You've been very busy as a liaison. I think all of your liaison roles in 1 or 2 weeks. I'll just comment very briefly with regards to the new CRD performing arts facility service. That did go forward at the last October board meeting, and when the CRD board highlights come out, which will be just in advance of the next council meeting, I will be providing some information and some detail about that new service and the process still ahead for the service to be approved by electric consent. So thank you for the reports. I'll turn to colleagues if there are any questions or comments. Councillor O'Keefe.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for attending this back meeting for me. Normally what happens is they provide the minutes, and if there's were there any recommendations to bring back? So
I didn't have any.
Because my recollection is that they were wanting to recommend to council about the pay in lieu, that would be a variance, because
Could we perhaps turn that into a question to staff? If
Oh,
there will
okay.
be minutes coming from that,
Sure.
minutes coming forward from that advisory committee, if staff are aware?
We typically do get minutes, but I'm not aware that we have seen any yet at this point.
If we
Okay.
could, when
I
was
guess-
the, when
I
was
guess
the
we'll
meeting,
wait and
Councillor
see.
Duncan?
That was September 25th.
Okay, we'll have to wait.
Okay, that's all, thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, thank you again, Councillor Duncan, for those updates. So we're next turning to committee reports. We have we have one this evening. That's first, the minutes of our committee of the whole meeting from October 20th, last week. We're receiving those on our agenda. We don't require a motion. Are there any corrections to those minutes? Seeing none, I'm going to turn to Councillor Duck, who chaired our committee of the whole meeting. And if you can take us separately through the three recommendations, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, there are three recommendations that came out of the Committee of the Whole meeting of October 20th, 2025. The first recommendation is that owners and tenants in occupation of the property within 75 meters, 246 feet of 9824 5th Street be notified regarding development variance permit application number DV100379 to vary sign bylaw requirements to allow additional signage on an existing freestanding sign, and that any written correspondence received be forwarded to council at the time of consideration of the approval of the variance.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Thank you. None are opposed. That carries.
Second recommendation, that owners and tenants in occupation of the property within 75 meters, 246 feet of 2344 Malaview Avenue be notified regarding development variance application number DV100381 to reduce the minimum rear yard setback in order to legalize the siting of an existing building to convert from an accessory building to a dwelling unit, and that any written correspondence received be forwarded to council at the time of the consideration of approval of the variance.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you.
And the final recommendation is that owners and tenants in occupation within 75 meters, 246 feet of 9522 Lockside Drive be notified regarding DV100380 to vary sign bylaw to allow for a longer duration for temporary signage and placement of a freestanding sign with a larger display area, and that any written correspondence received before to council at the time of consideration or of approval of the variance. And two, that conditions be placed on DV100380 that signs be removed 6 months after occupancy, and that the lighting for the sign be downcast.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you, Councillor Duck, for taking us through those three recommendations. We're next turning to staff reports. We have 7 this evening. The first, under 13A, is a tree removal request at 2020 White Birch Road. I'll turn to our Director of Engineering, Mr. Murphy, for an introduction, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So this report is regarding an appeal, a request to remove 4 protected trees from the strata property at 2020 White Birch Road. So originally the strata applied for removal of these trees through the regular process. This was reviewed by the town arborist, but on initial review the trees appeared to be healthy, so the request to remove was not approved. However, approval was given for potential pruning of the trees. Since that, the strata has appealed and is appealing to council for approval to again remove these trees, and with their submission they provided a full arborist report, and the arborist report does speak strongly that the trees with their branched unions are a risk of failure going forward, and the town's arborist reviewed again, and reviewing specifically the arborist report that was submitted, and does concur with that analysis. And so staff recommendation is that, given this review and the full arborist report received, that these trees unfortunately should be likely approved for removal. It is unfortunate. These are visually impressive trees on that street, but the species is simply not suitable for future, just too high of a risk with that species of tree and the way it's grown. So staff recommendation is to support the removal of the trees. There will be replacement trees required, and I believe there's a representative from the strata here. Yes, if council has any questions.
Thank you for the introduction. I'll turn to colleagues if there are any questions. Councillor Garnett.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to staff. Just seeking a little clarification, the recommendation is for removing 4 white poplars. And in the letter from the strata, it also has 4 protected lords. And on the back under remediation, it talks about 5. So having gone out there, I realized the tree that's doesn't seem to be in question here based on the pictures is number 711. So is that tree being removed, but it's being removed, but it's not protected?
Through the mayor to Councillor Garnett. So I don't have that level of detail. I don't know if the applicant could speak further.
Just before speaking, if we could just invite the applicant to into the meeting, Councillor Duck, Councillor Novick, those in favor? Motion carries. Good evening. Could you please provide your, just pop the mic on there. You can adjust it if you wish. And could you just tell us your name, please?
My name's Pamela Morning Light, and I'm one of the councillors on our strata.
Thank you for attending this evening. Councillor Garnett, you had a specific question?
Yeah, because in the letter from the strata, it mentions in one place 5 trees, and there are 5 trees.
Yes,
but it just
we
seems
measured them.
Okay, so is the one tree that's not being requested for removal, is it just that it's
It
not
does
protected?
not meet protection under the Town of Sydney bylaw.
So it is being removed, it's just not something we have to, okay,
Right.
perfect, thank you. And sorry, I think we're good, I'm good with you for questions for you. Just to staff, given the proximity to the road, and they're quite close to White Birch Road, I just are these are actually on the strata property? Because they seem like it could have been boulevard trees. I just want to make sure that they were.
Through the mayor to Councillor Garnett, yes, these are on the strata's private property.
Okay, perfect. And I think that's it, because I believe the other question was answered earlier today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Duck, please.
Thank you, Mayor. If I may, through to staff, I understand in our tree bylaw that there'll be a 2-for-1 sort of replacement prospect on this. What is, in replacing those trees, what is the sort of, as noted by staff, this is quite a canopy that's going to be taken away. What are the requirements of those replacement trees in terms of age and height? I mean, are we looking for, 3 little small trees going in and hoping over the next 25 years they grow? Or are we looking for something a little more substantial to replace that canopy? Thank you.
Through the mayor to Councillor Duck. So yes, the replacement tree requirement is 2 replacement trees for each protected tree that will be removed. So as just discussed, that's 4 protected trees, so 8 replacement trees in total. At least my initial understandings of the bylaw doesn't prescribe where the trees are to be planted or even what type of species. In this case, the strata has proposed a variety of maple that will match the maple trees across the street. And if it would, and I'm also, I don't believe the bylaw gives direction on the minimum size of a replacement tree. So if it suits, if council desires, you certainly could add more conditions to the removal of these trees, such as stipulating that the replacement trees have to go where the protected trees are being removed, and also perhaps that the replacement trees be selected and planted in consultation with the town's arborist.
Thank you, Mayor, to the council member. Has there been a plan sort of directed as to where these trees will be planted and what size they'll be?
Sorry, if you could come forward again, please.
Yes, we're looking at getting maple trees such as on the other side of the street. So they've been growing quite rapidly on the other side of the street. And our plan was to put maybe about 6 of them along the road, and then we have quite a large property, 3 acres, maybe put a couple of the other protected trees within the property elsewhere.
So the ones that you are getting are going to be somewhat substantial? Are they going to be 4 foot high, or do you have a?
We're going to put in, one of our members is a landscaper, and he wants to, he wants to get as big as he can that would be viable, that would survive, you know, the very dry summers that we have. We do plan to irrigate, but as big as we can get that will survive.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor O'Keefe and Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you. A question through you to staff. If you could refresh my memory under what conditions council needs to approve these things. So I guess what I'm wondering is, staff are in agreement with this. So is this still something, since it's no longer sort of an appeal, is it still necessary for council to actually approve it, or are staff have the delegated authority to proceed anyways?
Through the mayor to Councillor O'Keefe. So the original application was denied for removal by staff because the bylaw only allows removal for what I'll describe as obvious defects and obvious a tree that is approaching end of life. In this case, the trees are healthy, or at least generally appear to be healthy, and so that's why the arborist initially did not approve the removal of these trees. So it is still an appeal to council. It's just that with a more detailed look through the arborist reports, there are weaknesses in the trees that will become an increasing risk over time. And so the initial staff review was to not approve, and that's why it's being brought forward to council. It's just with the additional information that we have received, we concur with that assessment and would recommend to council to approve the removal.
Right, okay. So I guess my comment just to staff would be, I would be interested in if there's something we need to change in our process in order to allow staff to go ahead and approve something like this, because I don't know anything about trees, and really, and so if our town arborist, who is experienced in this, and upon second review, he gets additional information, and he thinks it's okay, then that's good enough for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I don't know anything about this either. In order to critique and make this decision, I appreciate the position the Strata's in and bringing this forward. But they are beautiful trees, and they're very large trees. And I often think when we see these that, our tree bylaw may benefit from, our tree protection bylaw may benefit from posting notice on trees when we have applications of this nature. I know in other municipalities we certainly see that. I expect we would inevitably get a lot more feedback on matters such as this if it were to come forward. Question through to staff, or perhaps the applicant, but I'll try staff first. The original recommendation, it's unclear to me the exact timeline here, was to approve the pruning of the tree canopy by up to 20%. And I appreciate that our arborist went out and reviewed this and provided that level of authorization. For a reason, I suspect that there were some concerns, and the arborist concurred that pruning significantly would be beneficial. Did that take place, or was this appeal launched sort of immediately on that decision?
Through the mayor to Councillor Renewal. So no pruning has taken place. The applicant did ask for this appeal before moving forward with any pruning. Again, I think it's best described as there was a closer look with the applicant's appeal and the arborist report that the applicant submitted with their appeal, that our arborist then went back and looked specifically and concurs. And to Councillor O'Keefe's comments, absolutely, I'm currently comparing this tree protection bylaw to the bylaw that we had where I came from, and certainly if I were to make tweaks, and hopefully might suggest some tweaks, I think a step where the director can request an arborist report from the applicant to be able to review it at the staff level stage would have saved the need for an appeal to council in this case.
Councillor Renewal, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just acknowledge that I'm struggling with this. Great respect for our staff and our arborist who's gone out. I just note in the written report here, the overall condition tree, the initial sentence refers to the trees being in good physiological health.
Okay.
And so I'm a little concerned with proceeding with the recommendation, but I look forward to any further comments from colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan? No? So I'm not sure why I wrote your name down. Councillor Duck? I was in the right direction.
Thank you, Mayor. If I may, an additional question through to staff. With the removal of 5 significant trees, can we anticipate any impact on infrastructure, roads, sewers, underground services with significant root systems in that area? Not that they're in the systems, but they might be supporting systems or above or below those systems.
Through the mayor to Councillor Duck. So fortunately, these trees are on private property, so there won't be any city utilities being at least directly underneath the trees. Certainly there's I would suggest with so a general rule of thumb is that the root structure of a tree tends to match the tree canopy. And so in this case, the canopy extending into the street is actually a greater risk to infrastructure if it's there than the proposed replacement species, which won't extend as far into the street, for better or for worse.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no further discussion, we do have a staff recommendation, and I'll just make council aware that Councillor Gannett will have a motion arising after the staff recommendation. I'll look for someone to consider moving the recommendation. Councillor Novak.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move the staff recommendation that the request to move the 4 protected white poplars from 2020 White Birch Road be approved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. I'll turn to the movers first.
Yeah. I don't have a lot to add to the discussion. I'm satisfied that staff have done their due diligence, and if they're recommending that these trees be removed, I don't see any reason to stand in their way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, thank you. Nothing to add.
Councillor Gannett.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I concur with Councillor Renewal. These are amazing trees, and knowing this area for quite a long time, they really do define that street, having walked back and forth along it many times in the course of my career. But having been out there on the weekend, it's rather evident that particularly tree 708 and 709 are leaning incredibly far towards the road, and that is, I always pause to have trees of this nature removed because of the value they add to our community, but I do consider these to be, somewhat dangerous, and I am concerned for one of our winter storms, what could possibly happen, just somebody even just walking their dog, which happens a lot in that area. Kind of ironically, tree 711, which I spoke to earlier, the one that isn't protected, is probably actually the one that would be okay to stay there, because it seems to be the one growing most upright and let the least hang over on the street. So unfortunately, and sadly, from my perspective, I will support the recommendation, but and I do just want to add that I appreciate staff adding our arborist perspective on the arborist report. For me, that's really important because I have the utmost respect for our arborist. I know how much he does in the community in terms of maintaining our tree canopy, and just being really supportive of it overall and helping our community be better and healthier. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mayor.
Councillor. Councillor Duck?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I will support the recommendations that come forward, in part because I'm gratified to hear that the strata will look to put the largest species in there they can, and that will survive in that location. So that's encouraging because we're going to lose a significant tree canopy there. And I would suggest to the strata that they do contact their neighbors, as one of my colleagues, Councillor Renewal, suggested, just to let them know what's going to be happening in that area, because those are going to be some significant trees going down, and certainly that is going to impact that neighborhood relative to, as Councillor Garnett mentioned, about walking in that area. It's a beautiful area to walk through. So yeah, it's just about alerting them and letting them know that those changes are coming, and hopefully that we won't have too much impact on our infrastructure when they are taken out of the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimous. Thank you. Councillor Garnett, a motion arising?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and I'll just read it here. That the replacement trees are planted in the same area where the trees are being removed, and that they be planted in consultation with the town arborist.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? I will just add, and thank you again to the Strata Councillor for coming forward this evening. You did indicate that while there are 4 trees there, the plan might be to have 6 trees there and locate 2 of the 8 trees elsewhere on the property. This motion is indicating that council's preference to work with staff and to see as many of the trees in the same general area, but we appreciate the considerations that you're giving as well. Seeing no further discussion, I'll call a question. Those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you.
Mayor, if I may, point of order.
Certainly.
Could we maybe consider a 5-minute recess?
Yes, we'll recess for 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay, we'll look to reconvene. Thank you. Our next item is 13B. I'll turn to our Director of Community Planning, Mr. Newcomb, to introduce the Housing Accelerator Fund grant application, Housing Action Plan Initiatives follow-up, please.
Thank you very much. So in 2023, the town applied for the Housing Accelerator Fund grant through the CMHC. We were unsuccessful in that initial grant application. And in 2024, CMHC renewed the program and the town applied again, and unfortunately was unsuccessful in 2024 as well. Staff informed council of the 2 unsuccessful grant applications earlier this year, and in response, council passed a resolution for staff to go back and take a look at the submission and see if there's any items from that submission that would be worth moving forward. So the application process included the development of a housing action plan, and that plan in Sydney's case included 7 items that we advised CMHC we were prepared to advance if we were successful in the grant application. So staff have reviewed that housing action plan, and 2 of those items in the interim since that grant application was made are now complete or nearly complete. So items 2 and item 7, the update to the town's DCC bylaw, are both either complete or nearing completion. One of those items is complete, I guess partially complete maybe. It was completed by outside organizations. So the number 3, the development of building permit ready plans. In the interim, both the provincial government and the federal government have developed plans that really anyone can take and use and adapt to use to apply for building permits. So staff have looked at those, and we believe that they're not too bad actually, and there's some value there, and we don't think developing our own local set of plans would provide much additional value over and above that. Then there's 4 items that are incomplete. 2 of those were 2 of the more expensive items in our grant application. One was a direct grant program to facilitate the building of accessory dwelling units, and the other one was the development of a online application system for developments. The latter, the application system, right now staff don't believe we have the capacity or the funding to implement that. It's a very laborious and long process. I believe the district of Saanich spent a significant amount of time and money to implement a system that's, I think, only partially to the extent that they wanted to get it to. And the grant program, staff felt that the funding required for that should come from senior levels of government. It's a direct grant program funding housing, and that's a senior government responsibility. The remaining 2 action items, so that would be number 1 and number 5, staff see value in moving forward. Number 1 is the development of an affordable housing development partnership program. So what we'd be looking to do here is develop a suite of regulations or bylaws or policies that would help incentivize the construction of non-market housing in Sydney, looking to ease the application process for non-market housing providers, provide financial supports, things like that to help facilitate non-market housing construction. And the final item is implementing a system to utilize either bonus density or inclusionary housing as a method to help incentivize affordable housing as well. And the next item in the agenda, I'll speak a little more to these, but yeah, those are 2 of the items that staff see value in moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. I'll turn to colleagues if there are any questions. This item. Councillor Garnett, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Through you to staff. When looking at the housing action plan, the little purple document that's in here, it indicated that the item number 1 would cost approximately 50, and item 5 would have been approximately 60. And now in here it's showing in the compilation it would be 60, I think 30 each. Is there a reason why the totals are different now?
Yeah, thanks. Through the mayor to Councillor Garnett. In the interim, staff have had the opportunity to review some RFPs around these financial analysis and also look in a little more detail into what would be involved in the development of the partnership program. So that's just based on those additional information that we've found in the interim.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Garnett. Councillor Duck?
If there are no further questions, we'll initiate the recommendation.
I have a question. Thank you. Sorry, do you have a question, Councillor?
I do.
Go ahead.
Thank you. And through you to staff. So these 7 action items are things that we're doing differently from previous applications. Is that correct?
Through the mayor to Councillor Novak, the intent of the grant program was to help facilitate housing construction over and above background levels. So the program really focused on items that would help facilitate additional housing construction. So the action items were structured around that, but not completely limited to that intent.
I guess my question is, I'm trying to understand what we're doing differently this time that makes you more hopeful of getting the grant if after having been refused twice in a row. That's why these things look like they're new initiatives. Is that correct?
If I could perhaps clarify, Councillor Novak. So in the grant applications, in the second grant applications, this housing action plan with 7 parts was a part of the application. Since that application was unsuccessful after the second attempt, staff are providing in this report which actions have been completed and are recommending that 2 of them be carried forward. And we're not reapplying for the grant. We already have a separate grant fund that it would help, as is being explained in the next council item, to move it forward. So does that help clarify where we are with the original 7-part housing plan?
Yes. Okay, so we're not reapplying for the grant. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Keefe?
Thank you. No, just a question in terms of process, because the next item on the agenda, 13C, contains the same recommendation as 13B. So was it your intention to read in all the recommendations for both after discussion on 13C, or?
Yeah, I was going to, after we have questions and the motions on the floor, sorry, after we have questions, I was going to suggest to council, given some of the questions that were forwarded to staff today by email, that we refer the staff recommendation in this motion to the next item.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. I have a question, and that is with the different components that could be part of an affordable housing development partnership program that are touched on in the report. We have an amenity fund. At one time, that amenity fund was 2 separate funds. It was a housing amenity fund and a general amenity fund. Perhaps Mr. Newcomb or Mr. Hissick, could you comment on when staff are giving consideration to this program, whether consideration will be given that how and when some of those amenity funds that were previously housing amenity funds might be used or be a part of such a partnership program?
Yeah, it's a great question. So typically a common way that they're utilized is to essentially provide a grant sort of in lieu of, that would offset town fees. So for example, a DCC fees or other development fees that an affordable housing project might be challenged to financially afford, and any additional costs on an on-market housing project just mean that the rents have to be that much higher. So an attempt to reduce the costs of the project overall, the town could bring that amenity money to bear to help assist the project in reducing their overall costs and hopefully providing cheaper rents in the ultimate project as a result.
Oh, thank you. Seeing no further discussion, Councillor Duck, you'd like to move the staff recommendation? Or sorry, we're going to make a motion to refer to the next, the staff recommendation to item 13C.
So moved.
and seconded. Those in favor? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. And now we're going to turn back to Mr. Newcomb to introduce item 13C, please.
Thank you again. So this report details some of the legislation that has been introduced in the last few years by the provincial government around housing in British Columbia. So in 2023, the province introduced Bill 44, and two of the requirements that came out of Bill 44 have been addressed by the town now. The first was the integration of small-scale multi-unit housing into the town zoning bylaw in 2024, and also the completion of an interim housing needs report also in 2024. So there's two outstanding to-do items from the legislation that the province introduced. The first is to ensure that the official community plan and the zoning bylaw for the town of Sydney provide enough zoned capacity in the housing in the housing related zoning to allow for the 20-year demand number in the housing needs report. And the other is that the town undertake a financial feasibility analysis of the town's density bonus system in the zoning bylaw to ensure that it doesn't, the costs of that system don't deter development. So in the last 6 months or so, staff have undertaken a review of both the zoning bylaw and the official community plan. And we have determined that it already does in fact provide for the housing 20-year housing demand number. So the housing needs report found that just under 3,000 units would be required over the next 20 years in Sydney, and current zone capacity, not including any bonus density or other development conditions, allow for just over 4,000 units. So based on that, no immediate updates to either the OCP or the zoning bylaw are required. Worth noting, however, that those 4,290 units that the zoning bylaw provides, that is a very broad number, and those units are not assessed, or the properties are not assessed on a site-by-site basis. So that doesn't guarantee that all of those units are developable or those properties are developable, but it just means that based on that broad analysis, that number of units may be developable in the future. And so just looking through that 20-year housing need number, staff broke that down in the report here based on the findings of the housing needs report. And Sydney has seen a high number of developments approved over the last and constructed over the last decade or so, over 500 market units. So whether those be condos or rentals, most of them were market rate units. And what the town is lacking is the below market or non-market housing units. And the previous report on this agenda spoke to that a little bit and the need to sort of incentivize that. But that's certainly what we need to be looking at going forward. And just looking ahead for additional legislative requirements from the same legislation, but not yet at the we need to do that stage. By December 31st, 2028, the town will again need to update its housing needs report and again provide that 5-year and 20-year housing demand number. And then by 2 years later after that, by December 31st, 2030, we'll need to update, review and potentially update the OCP and zoning bylaw again to make sure that those documents again provide that 20-year housing demand number in the pre-zoned capacity for the town. Also worth noting is just that the change in land use regulation introduced by the province and bringing in small-scale multi-unit housing has led to a bit of a shift in how we manage land use. You can certainly see it happening out in the community already. There's some different types of developments happening in neighborhoods that traditionally didn't see that type of development. And so there's all sorts of implications for the community in terms of infrastructure, in terms of servicing, in terms of amenities. And those are some of the things that staff would like to look at in the next OCP update and make sure that we're planning ahead for those things in the future. And then just a final note on the requirement to review the town zoning bylaw to ensure the density bonusing system doesn't deter development from a financial perspective. The inclusionary zoning side of that I mentioned earlier is very closely linked. Really, when you're talking about development and the costs of development, generally developers, the town does sort of categorize these costs that we impose on developers, but developers just see that as a large cost to their project. And overall, there's, despite there being different categories, there is a maximum that projects can pay toward anything and be viable. So whether it be inclusionary zoning or bonus density, it is really part of the same financial analysis, and it makes sense to do these two things at the same time and to take a look at, they are somewhat different programs, but to take a look at their impacts on development and what makes sense for Sydney. There's a bunch of different ways that we could structure things based on what that financial analysis shows. So we'd like to get that done and then report back to council with some of the results from that and look at a way to move forward after that. So thank you very much.
Sorry, we've been having some, what I hear, a very high-pitched sound, and when I turn off my mic, it seems to tone it down a bit. So I'll try to remember to keep it on when I'm speaking. Let's go to question. Sorry, thank you, Mr. Newcomb. Let's go to questions. I'll go to Councillor O'Keefe, Councillor Novick.
Thank you. Even though I sent staff a myriad of questions earlier today, and thank you for the responses for all those, there's a couple other things that just popped up more on the number side of things. And I think it would be, I want to clarify, I think I know the answer, but I think for the public as well to understand the different things. So when looking at at the top of page 2, when you're talking about the pre-zoning and that total of 4,290. So that is just to identify once these areas are pre-zoned, this is what the capacity could potentially be, as I understand it. So, for example, does that mean that we would have looked at all those lots that were previously single family, where there's one house, and that if all of those were to have 4 units on as is allowed, that is the amount that we would potentially have? I got that right?
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor O'Keefe. Yes, that's generally correct. So it's the current zoning bylaw and the current allowances within that bylaw would allow for that number of units.
Okay.
And that's minus any existing units. So that's additional units to what's there now.
Right, okay, yeah. I think it's good for people to realize that it's highly unlikely that every single lot in Sydney would decide to build 4 units on it. So it's kind of quite a stretch sort of thing.
Yeah, just to note that building that out to the maximum in this report would take decades and decades and decades.
Okay. And my other number thing is on the next page, looking at the blue graph about the 5-year and 20-year housing need, and then the paragraph below. So it says, over the past decade, we built over 500 new market rate dwelling units for sale or rental. So about 50 per year, I guess. And so it looks like, if I understand this correctly from the chart above, what we would be looking is roughly 150 per year then to meet our target. Am I understanding that correctly?
You mean the provincial housing target that was imposed on Sydney?
So the paragraph says, over the last 10 years, we've built an average of 50 units per year, which I thought was really low, but.
Development is very cyclical.
Yeah,
so some years we see a lot of units built and some years relatively few, but yeah.
And then so in regards to our housing target then, we're basically looking at having to triple that then. No? Because what I'm doing is looking at the 2991 and dividing that by 20 years to come up with roughly 150 or.
I'll turn to Mr. Edwards for a moment.
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor O'Keefe, the housing needs report is not a target that is required by the province. It is a forecast of our housing needs assessment. Our current target, as prescribed by the province, is a 5-year target. And
Right.
I believe I could have I'm going off memory, it's in the 450 range.
Right, yeah, thanks for, and I understand the differentiation, but I guess I should have, I could have worded it better. In order for us to meet the demand, the need that we have for these various types of housing, we would be needing to build about 150 units a year then, not to setting the provincial target aside, to meet the need that we think there is. That's what would be required.
That's correct. If we
Okay.
were going to meet the need that's identified in the housing needs report,
Okay,
that's correct.
okay, good. Yeah, no, that's good. Lots of different numbers, so thanks for the clarity on that. And then just the other, for my clarity and maybe for other people, on that same page, you mentioned there's some things about potential changes to encourage wider variety of housing affordability, and there's 4 bullets there about increased density, waiving application fees, tax exemptions, that sort of thing. So my understanding from staff is that those are the sort of things that staff would be looking at potentially in the previously discussed housing development program.
Yes.
Okay, and so my recollection is those are a lot of things that were in the OCP previously, and what staff are now trying to do is kind of to operationalize those sorts of things and pull it into the plan. Yeah.
Yeah, just to comment, if I may, I think, those things are all options that, council has right now if a non-market housing project was to come forward and sort of request those. I think what we're trying to do through the partnership programs to sort of set that up in advance and provide non-market housing providers with some level of certainty that if they do come to Sydney and propose a non-market housing project, that we'd be receptive to that and help facilitate the construction through that program.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. That's all for me.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll turn to Councillor Novick.
Thank you, Mayor. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your perspective, Councillor O'Keefe asked my questions. But I do have sort of a corollary to the first one, and that is through Mayor to staff. That figure of 4290, does that include the projects that have already been approved by council, such as Lochside and 2180 Beacon, etc., that have been approved by council but have not yet been built or granted building permits? Or are those not included in the 4290?
Through the mayor to Councillor Novak, I believe we excluded approved projects in that number, yes. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I believe we excluded already approved projects, even if not built, I believe. But again, I'd have to go back and look at the numbers to be 100% sure.
So that's a pretty substantial number in terms of this number. It's at least 10%, if not more. So I guess we could say that our capacity is substantial at this point in time. At this, is considerably larger than we're showing.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting that Sydney has a fairly long history of pre-zoning for density and being receptive in certain areas to allowing, I would call it higher density relatively for some bigger communities. Maybe it's not higher density, but for Sydney, in our multifamily zones, a lot of that's been pre-zoned for some time, so that capacity has been there for quite a while. And I think that's reflected in that number as well.
And since we're looking at 20 years, that's kind of a long time to forecast. It wouldn't include the possibility that density in commercial zones or in RM zones would be increased by future councils.
No, that's correct. That number reflects the current state of the bylaw without any changes in the future at all. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm done. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Novak. Councillor Duck, questions?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, given that over the past decade, we've built 500 new units, and the housing target is about that same number in the next 5 years. That's doubling the production in the next 5 years. And you just mentioned, staff just mentioned that the current numbers out there may not have been included, those that have been built. Is the target in the next 5 years, because you mentioned that the development is cyclical, that if we only had 500 units in the last 10 years and we're looking to do another 500 units in the next 5 years, is it reasonable to think we can double the production, or are we in a cycle that can accomplish or not accomplish that?
Through the Mayor to Councillor Duck, thanks for the question. I'll just kind of glance at Ms. Verhagen as I say this, but I would say that the past 10-year number is in fact higher than 500. I think that's a pretty conservative estimate. So I don't think it's unreasonable that we meet our housing target going forward. I mean, it depends on a lot of things like market conditions. And, most of that stuff is completely outside of the town's control, but, it's very possible that we could achieve that and, achieve it within, I would say, historical norms in terms of housing starts.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Depends whose crystal ball you use. Ms. Verhagen.
Sure, thank you. Good evening. Just to add to what Mr. Newcomb said, it's important to remember that the 5-year housing target number set by the province was 468 units. It's about 90, 95 units per year. And the province acknowledges that reflects about 75% of the total provincial housing needs estimate for Sydney. So it's not meant to represent all of the housing that they anticipate we will need. It's set a bit lower. And I do agree that the 500 units over the last 10 years is a very conservative number. There's been more than that, but it does go in waves, as Mr. Newcomb indicated. Thank you.
Thank you. You're finished, Councillor? Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor.
Councillor Garnett.
Thank you, Mayor. Question through you to staff, and it might be one that might be Mr. Hissick can answer. It's recommended $60,000 be used to undertake this from the Housing Capacity Grant. Do we have a rough idea of what that balance currently sits at?
Mr. Hissick, please.
Sorry to put you on the spot, Mr. Hissick.
Councillor, I anticipate your needs. Through the Mayor,
Only because I asked the same question 2 days ago.
and there goes the magic. We were expecting an unallocated balance of 135,000 after this year, so this would take up about 40% of that.
Great, thank you very much. Sorry, just through you to staff. If my calculations and my memory serves me right, I think when we sent our letter in, or got the letter back from the Minister of Housing congratulating us for reaching our first-year target, I think in the numbers we provided by staff to them, and they were feeding back to us, we have approved enough and have enough in the pipe if things work out conditionally wise in terms of the environment for building to reach that target. So that 500 or 468 to 500 in 5 years is achievable, correct?
Yeah, absolutely achievable. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And one last question. I think I've asked something similar along this in the past around inclusionary zoning, and I guess I'm still puzzled by why, from your perspective as a person who does this for a living and has done it for a while, why there would be the cash in lieu component if you're trying to build affordable housing, and do you think that by offering that potentiality that will actually end up in less affordable units being built?
I don't know why the province included the cash in lieu provision. I would speculate perhaps that, a market condo project is a very difficult type of development to include, rental units in. So if that developer is only focused on a market condo project, it gives them sort of an out to move past that. My understanding of the inclusionary zoning provision in the Local Government Act is that if the units are not provided an equivalent market amount, the value of those units needs to be provided. So it can be substantial. And I think the intent is that, you know, the municipality could take that money and essentially buy, if they wanted to, a unit in another building and make that into a purpose held rental unit. Or that money could go into a land bank or something that would help facilitate construction of affordable housing elsewhere. And that money can only be used for that purpose. So it's much more of a dedicated tool that municipalities have that they can use. And you know, the money can't be spent on sidewalks or other infrastructure. It needs to be used for affordable housing. So it really does help, I think, push that the incentivizing of that kind of unit, either as construction or its purchase, forward pretty substantially if it's used. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your explanation. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Edwards, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to emphasize a point, and I think it's worth putting an extra emphasis on this issue around the housing targets as imposed by the province, and that really the municipality only has the ability, we've talked about this before, and so apologies, but I want to drive this one home. Like, the municipality's role and responsibility is to set the table to allow for the development to occur, and the town of Sydney has been doing quite an excellent job at that, and we really have created the environment where the target can be met, and it is very achievable. But achieving the actual target is completely up to the market, and that is well outside our control. So,
thank you, Mr. Edwards. Councillor Duck.
If-
So, sorry, if there's no further questions, I just want to make a comment about the resolution. So we have referred the motion from 13B to this. I did circulate just how that might look. Councillor Duck, if you could take us through that.
Yes, so I'd like to read in an amended recommendation. That number one, that staff advise the Ministry of Housing that the Town of Sydney's OCP bylaw and zoning bylaw are both in compliance with sections 473.1 and 481.7 of the Local Government Act, 20-year anticipated housing need. Two, that staff proceed with an economic feasibility analysis of inclusionary zoning in addition to the required density bonusing feasibility analysis and report that back to council with the results. Number three, that council proceed with the development of an affordable housing development partnership program and report back to council with the program. And number four, that up to $60,000 be allocated from the housing capacity grant to complete the economic feasibility analysis, the density bonusing feasibility analysis, and develop an affordable housing development partnership program.
And do we have a seconder? Moved and seconded. Just before speaking, just two things. One is number three, just to note that you indicated that council proceed with the development. It should read the staff proceed. I think staff captured that. The other is I'd like to make a friendly amendment, and that is if you look at the second recommendation, it says the economic feasibility analysis of inclusionary zoning. And then in number four, it says to complete the economic feasibility analysis. This motion will stand alone in some locations, and so my suggestion is just a friendly amendment just to include the economic feasibility analysis of inclusionary zoning. It just, I think, makes that,
agreed.
That segment complete, so thank you. I'll turn to the movers, please.
Yeah, kudos to staff for bringing forward this this recommendation and moving it forward. I think it, as spoken to in our conversations, that we're moving along very well, and that we're, as our CAO has well said, we've laid the table and we're leaving it up to the development community to make the meal. So I'm really excited to see this go forward, and certainly the parts of it that address affordable housing are welcome. And I think that's one of our challenges has been noted that, and I think we have some projects on the go that are addressing that. So I'm pretty excited to see this, and we'll welcome this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Novak.
Thank you, Mayor. I have nothing to add.
Thank you. Councillor Gurnett. Then Councillor O'Keefe.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one quick comment. I just want to congratulate staff for creating a zoning bylaw, an OCP bylaw that allowed for, it says something when you don't have to change anything or make any amendments, that you did a good job the first time around, so thank you very much for that.
Thank you,
Mayor.
Councillor. Councillor O'Keefe?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm in favor of all of this. I do have a few comments to make, just mainly for the public watching to understand, you know, the implications of these two reports. And I'm in favor of this partnership program because it allows us to be more proactive and strategic in getting affordable housing that we so desperately need. As we've said, and it shows in here that as far as the numbers goes, we're going to meet our targets for the number of units, but we're not meeting them for affordability. We see evidence in our community of people living in their cars or on the street, and so I think this is a good move on staff's part by pulling some of those policies that we had in the OCP and operationalizing them, and marketing this out to developers, homeowners, maybe faith-based organizations that have a property to develop. And if they see, as staff said, that here's a suite of benefits or incentives we can offer, then we might be more inclined to bring some of those affordable developments to Sydney. So happy to see that. In terms of the inclusionary zoning, yeah, in favor of that, and the bonus density. The one thing I just wanted to comment on was, again, the Affordable Housing Fund. And so we did do away with that, but I'd be interested in resurrecting that once we have a look at, there's a number of different balls in the air here with inclusionary zoning and bonus density and ACCs and DCCs. So I think it'll be important to look at all of that in combination and look at the big picture and see whether we might want to bring that Affordable Housing Fund back. So I'd be interested to hear more on that. And then just the final thing on the ADUs, and for the public who always asks what that is, we're talking about basement suites and garden cottages. And I like staff's rationale in terms of, you know, there's senior levels of government should be providing the incentives on that. Hopefully they will. But I do like the idea of providing links to those pre-approved, well, not they're pre-approved, but there's, or they are pre-approved. Anyways, some set plans that have been created by the federal and provincial government for basement suites and garden cottages, that sort of thing. And I think what I'd like to see a bit more of, and I don't know if the staff has got this planned in terms, they talked about providing information to the public on what's available on their property, because what I hear from people is a lot of confusion about, they know that 4 units can be on their property maybe, does that mean you know, basement suites and garden cottages and a duplex? So having some information for them about what is possible on their property. And then also things like, if they are going to embark on a basement suite or a garden cottage, what are all those things that they need to think about? You know, staff in their email today talked about, you know, there's costs for a new sewer and plumbing lines. Other things might be they have to upgrade their electrical panel, bring in new service. There's a lot of different considerations. So I think the more information we can provide to the public, the better. And I know that a number of municipalities have already put together quite comprehensive guides on these sorts of things. So maybe there's things that we can copy and paste from other municipalities. And I guess I'll just end by saying that in the staff report, we talk about the greatest potential for new units is in our residential areas. So I think the more we can do to encourage that gentle density in those neighborhoods, I think would be a great idea. And if those aren't things that staff think they can do within current resources, I would be interested in staff coming forward with, if it meant a budget item, to have somebody to put such a guide together. So yeah, good job, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Keefe. I just want to touch on one comment mentioning that we did away with the housing affordability fund. We didn't do it. There was two funds. There was a housing amenity fund and there was the general amenity fund. Previous council did combine those two funds, but it did not get rid of the housing. We can use the general amenity fund for housing initiatives, and I did speak earlier through questioning after one of the staff introductions of will consideration be given in the Affordable Housing Development Partnership Program to considering how those funds. So members of the public have accused us of doing away with that housing amenity fund, and we did not. We changed the name of the fund, but the potential uses of that fund for housing have remained there. And so I've clarified it to members of the public before, and I think it's important that we clarify it again this evening. Speaking to the motion, I want to begin by thanking staff for the work done over the last year to review our OCP and zoning bylaw to meet the provincial regulation of determining whether those bylaws will meet our future needs in housing. There was a lot of work undertaken to get to tonight's reports, and just want to express appreciation. And colleagues, Councillor Garnett in particular and Councillor O'Keefe have mentioned the process, but to summarize, we have very strong OCP housing policy and very good not information. Our zoning bylaw, in terms of the pre-zoning that is allowed, has set us in a good place. And as Mr. Newcomb indicated earlier, Sydney has a history. So going back a number of councils, pre-zoning was in place that has allowed some of that significant housing to be built through cycles over the last many years. When we decided, Councillor O'Keefe used the term operationalize, when we wanted to operationalize that good OCP housing policy, the provincial government came out with a $4 billion housing accelerator program. And we applied for that for just over $4 million, and we were not successful. And about 170 applicants were not successful. We were one of those. And then they rolled out another $400 million, as indicated in the staff report, and only the 170 municipalities could apply for that, and we were not successful again. So out of a total of $4.4 billion, we were not successful in trying to advance excellent housing policy in our OCP and pre-work, if I can call it that, done in our zoning bylaw. And so what I'm pleased to see tonight is staff, in speaking to those 7 parts of the housing plan, have pulled out the 3 that will most directly impact affordable housing. One is a requirement. We have to do, per the legislation, we have to do the density bonusing feasibility analysis, but that will assist us. But the other 2 components, the feasibility analysis of inclusionary zoning and coming up with an affordable housing development partnership program, as colleagues have touched on, will be very significant in moving us forward. So thanks again for staff for all the work that's got us to this evening, and we look forward to those respective feasibility analysis and affordable housing program, partnership program, and coming back to council. I'll leave my comments there, and seeing no further comments, I'll call the question. Those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you. So we're next moving to item 13D, and I'll turn to our Manager of Engineering, Mr. Demare, to speak of renewal of license for the Waterline at 5th and Ocean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report covers a request to renew a license agreement with Transport Canada to operate a town water main on federal land at 9589 5th Street, which is situated on the southeast corner of 5th and Ocean. The water main, which was constructed in the 1980s, is an important main in the town's pipe network. With the existing license expired, a new 5-year renewal of the license is necessary to maintain and operate the main at this location. The report includes a recommendation for renewal of the license for a 5-year term.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are there any questions for staff? I see none. If someone could look to move the recommendation. Councillor Novak, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to read in the recommendation that the license between the town and Transport Canada to operate and maintain the water line at 5th Street and Ocean Avenue be approved for a 5-year term from May 1st, 2025 to April 30th, 2030.
Second.
We have it moved in second. I'll turn to the movers.
Nothing to add, thank you.
Nothing, any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor? And that carries unanimous. Thank you. Returning to item 13D, and I'll turn to Ms. Nelson, our corporate officer, to introduce the amendments to our council procedure bylaw, please.
Thank you. So this report addresses council's resolution to amend the summer meeting schedule. The council procedure bylaw contains the council and committee of the whole meeting schedules, and staff have made council's requested amendments to the first one is remove committee of the whole meetings for the month of July and August, and to retain one council meeting in July and one in August. Staff have also included some minor housekeeping amendments for council's consideration, and they're pretty straightforward, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Ms. Nelson. Are there any questions? Councillor Garnett? Sorry, my questions. If there are no questions, I'll ask somebody to move the recommendation. Go ahead.
Sorry, Councillor Duck, I saw your hand. I thought you had a question. This, perhaps you can answer this, perhaps the mayor, I don't know. It will create a bit of an inequity in terms of chairing meetings for council members. So how would that be addressed?
I guess that's something to be determined by when the chairs are announced for the committee of the whole meeting, so the acting mayor's schedule. I don't think there's something set in stone where, you know, each councillor has two times a year to do that or not. I don't think that's set in stone anywhere. It's not clear in the council procedure bylaw. It just states that there will be a schedule of acting mayors. Typically, it has been two committee of the whole, or 2 months of committee of the whole for each councillor, but that's not set in stone. It can be changed.
Okay, yeah, because it's one of the concerns I have, is to make sure, because I think it's important for council members to chair meetings in case the mayor can't be there. And so if you have one or two councillors that are chairing less meetings and their experience isn't quite what it might need to be, particularly in case of a new council that's elected. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, and that point is taken, because we'll be going into councillor appointments for acting. I mean, we do have situations where we've had a particular month at the regular time of the year where we haven't had a committee of the whole that particular month. So sometimes it arises naturally, but your point is acknowledged. Thank you. Councillor Novak?
I'm prepared to read the recommendation if there's no other questions.
Okay, again, let's go through questions, and when I don't see any more questions, I'll ask for somebody to move the recommendation. Please go ahead.
I have no questions. That staff proceed with providing public notice of the proposed amendments to the council procedure bylaw.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Councillor Duck.
Yeah, I want to compliment staff on putting this together and cleaning up our meeting bylaws. And to my colleagues' compliment, I don't think we need to hold a meeting just so we can have a chair. So I appreciate the input, but I think we can do with less meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gannett, or Councillor Duck. Councillor Gannett.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, no, it's not about holding a meeting for a chair. It's just that we do need clarification-wise. People do need the experience in the chair, and the less opportunities there are for that, then the less opportunities they're getting. And I will point out to council, because I voted against this for various reasons, which I won't repeat here. But I did go back and look at our July meeting, committee of the whole meeting, and July 21st regular council meeting. The committee of the whole meeting was almost 3.5 hours. The regular council meeting was 1.5 hours. So we didn't have a meeting there, potentially 5 hours of meetings. And in August, that almost came to light, because we canceled the meeting in the committee of the whole, and we had a regular council, which was 4 hours and 21 minutes. And there was an item in there that could have been done in committee of the whole that was over 1 hour long. So thinking of Councillor Rintoul in this respect, because when the meetings go long, and if you have long meetings, and if you're having less of them, they're gonna be longer potentially, it leads to less effective decision making because people get tired. That's just something I want to be. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor, let's just continue to speak to the motion rather than just speaking what each other is saying. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you. So we're next turning to item 13F. I'll turn to Mr. Hissick, our Director of Finance, to introduce the timing of the financial plan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to establish meeting dates for the upcoming financial plan process. Following recent experience, we're proposing the usual three-stage timeline, with introduction of the draft budget being made at Committee of the Whole on Monday, February 2nd, followed by preliminary budget discussions, again at Committee of the Whole on Tuesday, February 17th, following the stat holiday, and culminating most likely 2 weeks hence on Tuesday, March 3rd at a special council meeting for final budget deliberations. Because the first two meetings would be committee meetings, council should decide whether or not they're comfortable with additional agenda items being permitted on those nights. And if it is your preference that it be limited to financial plan, then we will plan accordingly. As indicated in the report, budget materials are expected to be available prior to the weekend leading to the introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hissick. Are there any questions on the report? I'd look for someone to move the recommendation, please.
I'm prepared to move. I move the recommendation that the schedule for the 2026-2030 financial plan process be set as follows. February 2nd, presentation of draft budget. February 17th, preliminary budget discussions. March 3rd, final budget deliberations, a special Tuesday meeting.
Second.
Okay, so just for clarification, within the motion, it's understood that February 2nd is a committee of the whole, that February 17th is a committee of the whole, and that March 3rd is a special council meeting. We haven't moved and seconded. I'll turn to the movers.
Nothing to add.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, no, I'm comfortable having a regular committee of the whole meeting on February 2nd, just simply because it's only the introduction of the budget and it does take a certain amount of time, but there is more time for other items to come forward. But I do think your suggestion of February 17th being just a budget discussion meeting makes more sense to have that just be the only item. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Council. I'll just turn to staff. If that's Council's will, does it require a particular motion, or staff are just taking note of the feedback? I mean, I think we should have others speak to that. And Mr. Edwards?
We would just take note of that and adjust the budget or the agenda accordingly.
Thank you. So I'll speak next, and just with regards to February 17th, meaning the committee of the whole, my preference would be that be a special council meeting. So it's on the same date, the same time, but it's a special council meeting. When we have a committee of the whole meeting, the recommendations for that meeting, and we will be deliberating on that meeting, will then go forward to the next council meeting, and we'll be reading those through. And so if it's a council meeting, we can do the same business at a special council meeting as at a committee of the whole meeting. And if we're looking to dedicate it primarily or solely to financial matters, it doesn't really matter whether it's a cow, but it just saves it from being repetitious and going to a future council meeting. So I'm going to propose an amendment that we change February 17th to a special council meeting. Councillor Duck, are you seconding?
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion? Those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. So that's an amendment to the motion that was on the floor. So now we have an amended motion. I think I'd like to hear from some colleagues further. Sorry, I do want to comment. At second budget meetings, preliminary budget discussions, in some years, going back a ways, they were dedicated to budget. In other years and more recently, we have had a small number of items also on that agenda, and I don't think it has disrupted or limited our discussion that evening on the budget, knowing that we had the special budget meeting going forward. So I'm willing to leave the motion as it is, not give direction in terms of that being solely a financial meeting, but understanding where some council members are leaning on that, and in working with the CAO on the agenda, we will look to balance the business amongst the 4 meetings, or what would be 5 meetings, during the month of February, to allow for as much budget deliberations at that meeting as possible. Councillor Renewal?
If I can just clarify, Mayor, to yourself or through you to staff, I don't know if we've got next year's schedule loaded in our calendars yet, but I assume that the February 9th meeting is council. That would be the intent. So with that in mind, you know, having a council meeting and then referring to February 17th as a special council meeting, my preference would be to see that meeting dedicated for purpose of the budget. I think that's in keeping with what Councillor Durant has suggested. So again, you were looking for feedback for staff to take potentially into that prep planning. That would be my preference.
Okay, so no, thank you for the input, and you know, staff have indicated they don't require a motion with regards to that being dedicated, but let me just take a look across council and ask, is there a general consensus that we could have a dedicated meeting to budget on February the 17th? I'm seeing nods, 6 out of 7 nods, so no motion, but that's council consensus. Thank you. I'll look to call a question on the main motion as amended. Those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Hisik. And now we're turning to the monthly building report. We don't have an introduction. I'll turn to staff if there are any, or turn to colleagues if there are any questions. Not seeing any. I do have one through myself to staff on the 2098 Beacon Avenue, 2114 Beacon Avenue, John Place development. We have the recent approval date of September 9th, but we don't have an expiry date as yet. If Ms. Verhagen, please.
Yes, to the mayor's question, that is because we're in the process of working with the applicant on addressing the conditions that it was approved by, which were conditions from the Advisory Planning Commission on addressing certain design guidelines. Once those are sorted, then it would be registered, and then that issue date would be set when it's issued, when the plans are approved, and then we'll be moving forward. So that should be happening soon.
Okay, no, thank you for that. And after those discussions or process takes place, would the date, given where we are today, what the date is today, would that expiry date be 2 years from, or from the date that you conclude your discussions?
The 2-year timeline starts when the permit is issued, which is when the drawings are agreed upon and set, which is later than the council approval date.
Great, that's helpful. Thank you. We're receiving that for information. We're now turning to correspondence. We did raise one item, 1510, to correspondence. I'll turn to Director Duncan, who wished to do that.
I've been promoted to director. Councillor Duncan. Yeah, I just wanted to briefly raise this one because I know when the Sandwich Peninsula Environmental Coalition started, it was during the tenure of our last council's term, and I know many of us were there, and so I'm glad to see they're still around. And we've received their report of public feedback. It's good to see people are still engaged, and I kind of wished I knew what people were looking at and what details they had for where they were frustrated with our lack of progress in our environmental goals regarding that were in our OCP, because from council's perspective, I couldn't see that. I knew that for our last annual report, we had those things actually designated out, which things were items in our OCP that were being actioned on. I know some of the environmental protection measures are, things where there have been spills into creeks or destruction in Roberts Bay. That certainly is difficult for the town to enforce because these are things where there's a lot of cross government involvement, as well as finding perpetrators and private property rights, essentially giving each individual property owner at least as much, if not more, control than the town has over public property in these locations. And so I'm glad that the public is concerned about those things, and I hope they'll lobby with the correct groups involved who actually have the power in those locations, which would be the private property owners. But I thought in the meantime, I would point out that as I was going through all these different people, organizations, environmental initiatives, I found that the airport has the Victoria Airport Authority rather has a 2020 to 2024 annual or 5-year plan. And in their environmental section, of course, they have started an environmental initiative for the Aichi biodiversity targets, which is a UN initiative, which includes quite a number of things that we've already kind of worked with them on, and say Ray Creek and 1010 on the North Saanich side. So invasive and alien species prevention and removal, protected areas, ecosystem restoration, including pollution reduction, which is something that we would be happy to continue working with them on the streamways that go through our respective municipalities. And so that initiative, the Aichi biodiversity targets are being set. That was something in their plan for this year. And so I see this as a really high value thing, that if they have these targets and they begin working in this way, we can look at opportunities to collaborate with them, because they've been a good partner in the past, and we have a history of collaborating with them and the surrounding First Nations. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Just because we raised it to correspondence, I'll just look for a motion to receive.
So moved.
Councillors Novak and Duck, all in favor? Thank you. We're next turning to the remaining 9 items under correspondence for information. Don't require a motion. We have no notices of motion. I'll turn to Councillor Garnett and thank him for his regular reading of our motion to go in camera.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move it as in the opinion of council that the public interest requires that persons other than members of the council and officers be excluded from the meeting to consider confidential matters regarding personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for an appointment pursuant to section 90.1A of the Community Charter, and that council continue the meeting in closed session.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Motion carries. We'll reconvene in 5 minutes. Thank you, staff.